Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am your host, Samantha Khan, the Advocacy and Communication Officer here at ChildLinK. I would like to welcome everyone again to Sharing the Link. Of course, today's topic is based on the impact of domestic and intimate partner violence on its victims. As usual, I will give our audience an opportunity to get to know our panelists, and then we'll jump right into the program. Before I do so, I would like to serve as a reminder that this program would not be possible without the input of the delegation of the European Union who funded the CRIE project. That's the Community Responding in Emergency project. So for our esteemed panelists, we have Ms. Tanya Joseph-Schultz, and we have Ms. Janelle McCoy. Ms. Tanya, can you introduce yourself? Tell the public a bit about who you are and what you do at ChildLinK.
Sure, Samantha. My name is Tanya Joseph-Schultz, and I am one of the counselors at the CAC in the Region 4. I do child abuse counseling, group counseling, trauma counseling.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Ms. Janelle, definitely let us know a bit about you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janelle McCoy, and I'm a facilitator with Youth with Purpose, and we work with migrants and local persons in the country.
Thank you so much, Ms. Janelle.
No problem.
Ms. Tanya, how would you define domestic and intimate partner violence?
Samantha, I would say that domestic violence, also called domestic abuse, is any pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain power and control over victim or over someone. And normally the aim is really to gain the power and the control, and they can do that in a number of ways: physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional. But the aim is mainly to humiliate, terrorize, manipulate, and hurt the victim.
Okay, definitely. And would you define intimate partner violence as the same?
Yes. Intimate partner violence is also called IPV, and it is domestic violence by a current or former spouse against a current or former partner in an intimate relationship. Again, it's to gain power and control over the victim. And there are 4 main types of IPV. We call physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, and psychological aggression.
Okay, definitely. I love that you mentioned that point with intimate partner violence. It can be with a current or a past partner. So it means that you don't have to be living with the person.
Certainly. If you have left the relationship, the person can still victimize you.
Yes. So just to add to what Mrs. Tanya had just mentioned, when it comes to sexual violence, of course, it's going to be coercion, the perpetrator forcing the victim to perform any sexual activities that they are not comfortable with, that they do not want to do, any form of harassment, physical violence, which would be physical harm. We have emotional aspect of it, which also includes cursing the victim, using any negative terms on the victims. We would also have stalking the victim. All of those are forms. Go ahead, Ms. Tanya, were you going to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with what you are saying.
Yes. So, Ms. Janelle, what are some of the major warning signs that abusers may show?
All right. Some major warning signs that they can show would be that they could, if you are a person who was living with family, they could try and isolate you from that family, like get you to be low or specifically no contact with your family, like say your mother, your father, or your brother. Because if the victim has like a support system, it's harder to manipulate them. Another warning sign is if they act possessive over you and aggressive towards you, right? Um, a lot of abusers see the person that they abuse as their own, or like their own person, theirs. So they're not going to want like other people around, especially if those persons would be in support of the victim.
It, definitely. Miss Twanya, would you like to add?
Okay, yes. To add to what Janelle said, there are so many major signs, and sometimes the victims they do not see those signs. And so, as she mentioned, isolation is one of them. Jealousy and possessiveness. That's where the abuser wants to be with you constantly. Sometimes he or she accuses you of cheating all the time. They would follow you around, call you frequently. Sometimes they would even ask your friends to check upon you. And there was a controlling behavior. Constantly, they would question you about who you are, going out with, who you want to spend time with, what you did if you went out, And sometimes they would go as far as to make you ask permission to do certain things. They would act like if you are incapable of making good decisions for yourself. And most time they hide that controlling behavior by pretending to be concerned about your safety and your well-being. But it's
Yes.
all fine, right? Another sign is quick involvement. The abuser claims to love you at first sight. Oh boy, since I see you, I love you. And they pressure you into making commitments. They would not take no for an answer. And this is another sign. There's a sign, what we call hypersensitivity. They are easily insulted. Sometimes they see everything as a personal attack on them. They look for fights and they blow things out of proportions. They are often very unpredictable. When you live with a partner like this, sometimes you do not know what would upset them or get them angry. It's like you are literally.
It feels like you're walking on eggshells.
Yes, you're very uncomfortable. That person could be also very disrespectful or cruel to others. Pay attention to how your partner treats others, especially animals. Punishes the animal cruelly. Or children. Pay attention to how he treats his mom. All these are signs. Is he or she sensitive to pain and suffering? Another sign, sometimes during sex, they want to force themselves on you. They have little concern for your own feelings. Sometimes you don't want to have sex, but the person wants to have sex, so they get angry and they try to manipulate you. And some of them, they even have rigid sex rules. Or they may even make jokes about your body. You don't look so good, you're too fat, you must lose weight during the sexual encounter. And these jokes are normally very degrading, right? And another sign that you can look for is unrealistic expectations. Some of them, they would say things like, I am all you need. Are you all I need? And sometimes they compliment you in a way that makes you feel that you are superhuman. They could be very over-flattering, and they expect you to be perfect in everything you do, right? And sometimes, again, abusers, they blame others for the problems. If they go to work or school and something happens, it's not their fault, somebody else's fault, right? And they blame others also for their feelings. They may tell the victim, you caused me to hurt you. You caused me to feel that way. They never take responsibility for their own feelings, right? These are some of the signs. There are so many other signs, but these are some that I would like to mention this afternoon. Another sign that. Okay, go ahead, Joanelle.
No problem. Another thing I'd like to add on to what Twanya said earlier about the jumping into love very fast. There is nothing wrong with a partner being concerned for you, or wanting to know how your day is, right? But there's a threshold between it coming across as concern and as them trying to control you. Right? And sometimes it can be hard to see, but you can look for the signs. Another thing too, she said, Miss Twanya said that they come and they want to love upon you very quickly and push you into a relationship. That's something that is known as love bombing, right? Where they just overwhelm you with all this affection, right? So that when they start abusing you, right? You're wondering, where is this person that I fell in love with who was just over the moon about
Mhm.
me? But in most cases, that can be a mask or a personality they put on to manipulate you into the abusive relationship.
All right.
Definitely.
Yes, and sometimes you hear that your partner had battered his previous partner, and you might doubt, but this is also a sign that you should take note of, right? And sometimes when you confront your partner and say, I heard you used to abuse this girl before, you might say, no, that's a lie. Or you might say, she was kind of crazy and brush it off. Sometimes the partner may also like to break things, especially things that are very valuable to you, your valuable possessions. They might smash your cell phone or throw things around, just to hurt you. Another verbal, they use verbal abuse too. Sometimes they, tell you that you're stupid or you're worthless, or those kind of things to degrade you. And they do not respect your privacy and your property. That's one of the signs also. So there are many, many signs, right? And if they push you or they shove you or they push or shove or any physical trying to restrain you from leaving a room, it's one of the signs. You should be able to be in a room with your partner and live comfortably by yourself, right? So this is one of the signs also.
Definitely. Thank you both for all of those strong points. I think it's Ms. Tanya mentioned this, gaslighting, in terms of where they always blame someone else for their actions. That can also look like the victim being told, oh, they're crazy for thinking that this happened. So that in their mind, they're questioning whether something happened or not. They may be told that they're making a big deal out of a simple situation. All of that can be included when we say gaslighting. So basically the victims now are questioning whether something happened or not, or whether it's really to that magnitude or not. Now, what would you say, Ms. Janelle, are the reason why some of the warning signs are ignored by the victims?
From what I've seen as my time working as a facilitator, majority of the time is that if there if it's a family where a spouse is abusive, more than likely the other spouse is reliant on the abuser for things like housing, money, or and more than likely care for their children, right? Because they might have two, three, one child or several children, right? And in most cases, because in some cases it can be the other way around, in most cases it's the mother who's staying home taking care of the children, right? And she has to rely on the abusive husband, right? So even though he can show these warning signs like being aggressive towards her or the children, or as Guyanese say, abusing up when he come home, right? If say one thing isn't done, or what he assumes is one thing that isn't done, right? They might turn a blind eye because they say that they're staying for the children, or they're making sure that the children have a home, they have food over their heads, and it's a lot of other factors as well.
Thank you, Ms. Janelle. Ms. Tanya, would you like to add?
Yes, I can add some answer because for me, one of the reasons they say that they see the partner as the person he was before. He was kind, he was very caring, loving to them. So they do not see the present reality where this is a man now that is battering me. So they claim to love. Another thing, they hope, they live with the hope that, the partner will change. maybe one day he would change, he would come to his senses, and we could have a future together. You know, it's sometimes very hard to give up on your hopes and your dreams, you know. And again, as Jonelle said, if they are dependent on the partner to take care of them and the kids, they do not have any way to sustain themselves, then they would just let a blind eye.
Definitely. And how does domestic violence affect its victims?
Well, domestic violence affects its victims in many, many ways. You know, physically, you see physical scars. Sometimes you may see a woman with a black eye or around her neck, dark circles on her face, and so, you know, so it has physical signs. It also leaves emotional signs. There's this feeling of hopelessness, you know, there's this feeling of fear. It leaves the victim very fearful, you know, and because it affects them mentally and emotionally, you know, mental effects, they get like anxiety. Some of them become very depression. Some even have suicidal thoughts, and some of them, victims, they even attempt suicide as a way to escape, right? So there are many, many signs that we can look for. That's just to name a few of them.
To tag on to
Go
what
ahead.
Twanya said, especially in the case of domestic violence, like physical violence, the victim now will become, as Ms. Twanya said, they become very traumatized. So, like, say if you raise a hand suddenly, right? Since they're so used to if their partner raising the hand suddenly means that they're about to get slapped or a hit or something, you see they're gonna jump back, right? Or they're gonna holler. It's a trigger. It's a they see the quick movement as a trigger that violence is incoming, right? So they're going to be quick to like jump back or maybe holler, scream, and it's an instinctual thing that's ingrained in them because of the physical violence. So that's also another way that they could be affected by domestic violence.
Yeah. And just to add to what Johnny is saying, domestic violence also leads to low self-esteem. You know, so that partner may start questioning him or herself. Because of low self-esteem, they lack self-confidence, you know, they think less about themselves. And other physical signs in chronic cases could be like changes in your eating and your drinking habits or your sleeping habits, you know, sexual dysfunction. All these are physical signs, changes in your fertility cycle, right, in women, right? So there are many signs, chronic fatigue, sometimes shortness of breath, and sometimes you may misdiagnose and think it's other medical condition, but all these could happen as a result of the stress from the relationship, psychological effects, emotional effects.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And just to add to both of the panelists, uh, another major consequence would be premature mortality, premature death.
Yeah.
It could be through suicide or it can be inflicted by the perpetrator. So
Yes.
premature death, also cardiovascular diseases. So even though they may have external scarring due to physical harm, you can also have internal ones. So that's another major consequence of domestic and intimate partner violence. Ms. Janelle, what would you say are some of the reasons why victims may return to the perpetrators?
One reason I'd say is money, right? Because a lot of times, remember, if they are relying on the abuser for housing, food, and clothing and other things, if they run away, now they find that it's harder, right? They have to find they themselves have to find maybe if they run with the kids, they have to find clothes for the children, clothes to themselves. They have to find a job to where they have to go now and to go and work, right? And they may not be used to this, right? So they say it's just easier to return back to that partner, even though they've been going through abuse with them. Um, Another reason too is, as Twanya mentioned earlier, low self-esteem, right, is something that happens in victims of domestic violence. So they they can, due to that low self-esteem, they can now go and say, well, even though he was beating me, he was still taking care of me, right?
Mhm.
And like maybe it's my fault that he was
Right.
beating me, or maybe I did something, so maybe I should go back and apologize. Because
Mhm.
one thing that's I don't think is really looked at is sometimes a victim might not be rational, or how to say, they can't see outside of a specific, well, not a specific, but a narrow tunnel that that the abuser put them in, right? So they might still be looking out from inside that narrow tunnel and saying, well, it was easier back in this position.
Okay, definitely. Miss Tanya?
Yes, Samantha. In addition, some victim abusers, I would say, work very hard to keep their victims in the abusive relationship. Besides withholding finances so that they wouldn't be able to go, they would tell them things like, nobody would want you. Where would you go? So they would stay. And again, there is the real fear of death or worse abuse if they leave. Sometimes they are threatened, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill the children. Sometimes there are custody issues. I would get sole custody of the children. You're going to be without the children. And we also noticed that it has been proven that it's a higher risk when the woman plans to leave. Most women are killed during that time when they are planning to escape or when they have just left the relationship. So some of them, because of fear of death, they stay, you know. And again, abusers make victims feel that it's their fault. So sometimes they stay because they say, man, it's me who caused him to behave so. It's because of what I said or what I did or what I didn't do. And if maybe I change my behavior, I change my attitude, maybe he would change. Maybe things would be better. So as a result of that, they stay. Again, they hope things would get better.
Yes, definitely. I'm glad that you mentioned that point. I think one of our panelists, of course, mentioned earlier, hoping that they would change and hoping that they can change their perpetrators. And Janelle mentioned love bombing, and that can have a lot to do with it. So let's say that the perpetrator was perfect, was the perfect spouse, was the perfect partner initially. They will be looking for that again and thinking that they can bring back that person. So they look to change or help their perpetrator. Another reason to add to the number of reasons that you guys have given, of course, would be that they are parents that do not want their children to be children in a single parent home. They think there are more benefits. It's better for their children to grow up with both parents. And that might be one of the reasons why they return and continue to stay with their perpetrators.
Yes, there's a stigma around being a single parent, specifically being a single mother, so that even if she left the husband or so because of abuse, people will still like say, you really left your husband, or something along those lines.
Yes, definitely. And would any of the panelists say that we have additional factors that may actually prevent the victim from seeking help?
Yes, again, sometimes it's economic factors. Sometimes victims, they do not seek help because sometimes the abuser is the sole breadwinner. You know, if I go and I seek help and they find out that it's an abusive relationship, you know, where would I get money to pay the rent or to buy food for the children or to pay the passage just to go to school? So, you know, when you're dependent on that breadwinner, you wouldn't seek help because you see them, you know, as the source of help to provide economically for the family, right?
Another thing too is that um, there could be other factors such as other people enabling the abuser to abuse the family because we know that in certain cases if the abuse goes to say a family member for help, they end up blaming the abused. They end up um, sending, sometimes in some cases, sending them back to the abuser, which can end in death for the abused person. So sometimes people in the abused life can enable the abuser to keep on or keep the abuse going.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
And again, Samantha, sometimes it could just be lack of education. Sometimes the victim doesn't know where to go for help,
Right.
who to turn to, lack of trust, you know. Should I go to the police? Can I trust the police if I go to the police? You know, so sometimes it's just they just need more education, how to get the help, where to go, how to find help in such situations.
Okay, yes, very strong point indeed. And I'm so glad that I have Miss Twanya and Miss Janelle here so that we can educate the public on where we can go to help. So for Miss Twanya, can you tell us how ChildLinK can actually assist victims?
Sure, Samantha. ChildLinK plays a vital role in helping victims of domestic violence and intimate partner violence by providing psychosocial support. We do counseling, right? Empowerment counseling for victims so they can get the strength, being empowered so that they can do something. Because sometimes we see that these victims, they cannot help themselves in any way. They do not have a skill, they are not educated. And so there are programs to help them develop skills, vocational skills, other training like cooking and sewing and those things to get help. We also provide a link to help them get help to resources that they would need. Let's say, for instance, a victim wants temporary shelter, then we could link them to help and shelter where they can get shelter for themselves and the children so they can be safe. We also do counseling to the families to help support the victims, right? ChildLinK also help like if they need a job to help in processing the applications or finding places that they may gain employment. All these are some of the things that ChildLinK does to help victims, you know. They may even provide recommendation letters for them, right? So ChildLinK works helping victims of domestic violence to better their life situations and so they can really help themselves.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Miss Janelle, can you tell us how Youth with Purpose can actually contribute and help victims?
Um, we actually do a bit of the same things that Miss Tanya outlined. Um, if the victim needs shelter, we refer them to help and shelter. Um, if they need something like a job letter or so, we can also provide that as well as recommendations, and we can also find um, places that would help them get a job and things like that. Like if they're also renting, we've also provided them with renting assistance through other organization as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Mhm.
I would just,
This one comes to mind, which is very important also. Sometimes the victims may need legal advice or legal representation, then ChildLinK will help make the link to legal aid where they can get help, legal advice, or even representation if they're unable to do so. So that's another area where ChildLinK works in helping victims.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both so much. I would just like to mention that the victims of both intimate partner violence and domestic violence can be any gender. The perpetrators can be any gender also. We just would like to emphasize that. So we have come to the end of this amazing program. I would now like to give both our panelists the opportunity to give any closing remarks. Ms. Tanya, you can definitely go first.
Okay, well, in closing, what I would like to say that if there is anyone who is listening, or if you have a family member who is in a situation of domestic violence or intimate partner violence, you know, advise them to come out to seek help, because there is help that they can get, you know, and let that victim put a practical safety plan in place. This is a personal plan that they've developed, just in case with things that they would need to escape to safety. Like, let's say the victim may have a medical condition. She would want to make sure she has a supply of medication. So when she flees, she can take her medication. She would be okay, right? Make sure if the victim has children, the children, they have to go to school, even if they are in a shelter. They would need the exercise books, their uniforms, things like that. Ensure you have your documents, very important. You might need your ID card, your immunization cards, things like that, your passport, very important documents. Always have them in a safe place. And put up some money. As little as it is, always hide away some money, so that if you have to escape, you at least could pay your transportation from one point to the next. These are some of the things you have in your safety plan, right? So that you do not have to remain in an abusive relationship, because we have seen here in Guyana what happens when they remain. One person dies, the partner dies, and now we have seen a new trend where the ladies, they are fighting back. So you do not want your partner to die, or you do not want to lose your life in that relationship. So get help, have a plan in place, and try your best to get away from that situation. If it's remedied and the person get helped, the abuser seek counseling or advice, you know, and is rehabilitated, no longer perpetrator of the abuse, and the home is now safe that you can go back to with the children, fine. But otherwise, abuse also affects the children. So get help as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Ms. Twan. Ms. Janelle?
Yes. Even though a lot of examples were more about interpartner violence, domestic violence isn't just physical violence, as was stated in the beginning of the at the beginning of this meeting. It's also verbal, it's emotional, it's mental, it's financial, right? And a lot of times everything looks normal on the surface, but that doesn't mean that if when you peel back that surface that it's going to be normal. So basically, it's not just physical violence, right? But you should also be looking out for other types of violence, because again, emotional, financial, mental, these are also things that can victimize someone. These are things that can hurt other people. It doesn't always just have to be physical.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chanel. Now, of course, I would like to let everyone know, all of our viewers, if it is that you would like to reach out to ChildLinK, of course, you can do so through social media. You can reach out and send us a message. On Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram and Twitter. That's the handles would be ChildLinK Inc. or ChildLinK Guyana. You can also give us a call here in our office. Our phone number, it's 233-3500 or 233-3502. Of course, I would like to thank both Ms. Twania and Ms. Janelle for being a part of the program today. Both of you have been pretty informative, and you guys have been great. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the viewers for tuning in, and have a good one.
Thank you for having me, Samantha.
Yes,
You're,
very wonderful being here. Thank you.
you're welcome. Have a great one, guys.